SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Mid-Delta Auction Company is holding a spring equipment auction Thursday, March the 20th from their location across from Cannon Motors in Greenwood. Visit mdauction.com for more information. That's mdauction.com. We'll see you there.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, and I am down at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature Luncheon. Rhino safe and sound back at SuperTalk headquarters. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
What about it there, Rhino?
Oh, it's just another hump day.
Well, how about yesterday after the show? Why does it seem like all the big stuff happens after the show? Of course, that gives us content for the following day. The astronauts returned aboard the SpaceX Dragon, that after 9 months in space. Quite the saga. Now, I'll have to say, I was impressed with an interview yesterday afternoon there at the White House lawn conducted with Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX. Learned yesterday that at one time he was the chief engineer. And he's not a person you would think that is, shall we say, bathed in humility. But yesterday he actually made the point, you know, I wasn't a very good chief engineer. We had several failures. And he said, I thought the company was not going to make it, going to go bankrupt. But triumphantly yesterday, the company achieved something that the Biden administration could not. I think it's more like refused. And that was to engage the services of Musk's SpaceX to retrieve the stranded astronauts. I would call it a victory for the private sector. Now, the Biden administration has indicated, no. We never really received an offer from SpaceX to assist in this effort to return the stranded astronauts. But Elon Musk would have nothing of it. I'm sure you probably saw that. He said, yeah, that's absolutely true, that they refused to engage us for help. And he kind of took the Biden administration to task, I thought. He said, we definitely, I'm quoting him here, we definitely offered to return the astronauts earlier. There's no question about that. They were only supposed to be there for 8 days. They were there for 10 months. So, Rhino, I know you're going to be shocked at this. Did politics play a role in this 10-month delay?
Well, one side would say no, but everybody that's living in reality looks at it and goes, yeah, that's pretty obvious.
It was clear that the former president, who was clueless and sleptwalked through the whole 4 years, didn't want Musk to do something that, honestly, his administration could not. And he knew that it would reflect upon Trump, given Musk's and Trump's relationship in the private sector. And its superiority over government in this case. Now, Musk, I thought, did a masterful job as the chief executive of this company. He said, thanks to the excellent work of the SpaceX team working with NASA, the astronauts are now safely home. And so congratulations to the SpaceX NASA teams on excellent work. Now, this is the way a chief executive should comment, should state the analysis of the event. That was perfect, I thought. He essentially gave all the credit to his team. That's what good leaders do. So his stock went up with me quite a bit with those comments. I thought that was great. He credited the team, and then when he kind of self-deprecated himself by saying, yeah, I wasn't a very good chief engineer, and we almost went bankrupt. We had lots of failures. And I don't know a great deal about the physics behind space travel. It's not lost on me, of course, that it's incredibly complicated and involves lots of moving parts in the alignment of the stars, no pun intended, for everything to come off without a hitch. But he was talking about, what did he say, Rhino? Getting into orbit at 17,000 miles an hour within 9 minutes, I believe, is the cycle there. And was talking about the energy being dissipated. And then he described the return of the craft as just a speeding meteor, I think what was the term that he used. And, of course, you've got to rely on the heat shields, which are dissipating the heat and protecting the craft. And he said it's nerve-wracking when you're watching the spacecraft return and just falling back to the Earth's surface. In this case, of course, parachutes delivering it safely into the Gulf of America. But it's pretty cool to just hear him talk about that and all the technology behind that, and him basically reflecting on it like any chief executive would, any leader would. When you're dealing with a very complex undertaking, you're nervous. Of course you are, especially when the whole world is watching. Just think about that. If the entire world were viewing your work and your work product, how nerve-wracking that could be. He handled it perfectly. I couldn't be more proud of him, and more importantly, for the private sector. Now, help me out here, Rhino. It was a couple of weeks ago, Representative Ilhan Omar, she no friend of the United States. She made the statement, Elon is one of the dumbest people on earth. So having made that statement 2 weeks ago, and then yesterday witnessing those 4 parachutes deliver this vehicle safely into the water and the astronauts emerge, just how dumb is he there, Elon? It's just incredible. Once again, all politically motivated.
I think the most disconnected from reality I've seen anybody as far as reactions to this was some liberal lunatic on social media was trying to claim that Elon bussed in the dolphins that appeared when the astronauts showed up. They were convinced he had to have pulled that off for good PR.
Oh, my God. That's right. Okay, so went out, I guess, and just hired some team of people and all the other assets.
Well, he got that little horn thing from Flipper and held it under the water and pushed the button a couple times. And Flipper came up and he told Flipper, hey, I need some friends. We're trying to get a good image.
Oh, my gosh. There is no limit to the delusion in this particular case. There ain't no doubt about that. Wow, I didn't know that. I love that. That's absolutely fantastic. So a big celebration. It kind of made you proud, I think, to be an American and to celebrate this sort of victory. And again, I say it's a triumph for the private sector, because the public sector, no disrespect to the good people at NASA, and it wouldn't shock to learn that perhaps there was something going on there with respect to the Biden administration. I don't know. It'd be speculative at this point. But Elon Musk He stated very succinctly, very directly, very clearly that, yes, we offered our services and they were rejected.
Well, considering he wasn't even invited to the EV summit, do you really think they were going to reach out and get him to do any favors for him?
Well, that's true. They didn't invite the person, honestly, that put EVs on the map. Let's be honest about that. Without Tesla, I'm not sure that EVs would have progressed to the point that they have in popularity. I think I read the other day, Rhino, that half the vehicles in China now are EVs. Is that right? Or half being sold, perhaps?
Yeah, but that includes scooters, and scooters are a much better use case for an electric vehicle than cars.
But it is true. You saw the big announcement yesterday. What's the company? BVP, I think, is the big Chinese automaker, announced breakthrough battery technology. We hit on it just briefly yesterday on the show. 5-minute charge gets you 400 miles. But
if it's anything like their DeepSeek AI announcement, it's going to be all lies and buffoonery.
And that absolutely could be true. But I think you and I would agree that there is a massive amount of R&D pertaining to battery technology right now. I don't know when the breakthrough could occur. It's being reported that Tesla is close to something. All right, folks, we're taking a break right here. Once again, we're at the Westin for the Madison County Business League and Foundation Luncheon League and Legislature. Up next, it's Katie Bryant Snell. She's the chair of the Madison County Business League and Foundation.
Trust Cares. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live. The Element Wealth Studio has been relocated to the Westin in downtown Jackson, Mississippi for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature Luncheon. We're pleased to welcome now Katie Bryant Snell. She serves as the chair of the Madison County Business League and Foundation, and also Jan Collins, the executive director of the Madison County Business League and Foundation. Katie, Jan, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I peeked in the big room there here at the West, and it is all set up. Katie, expecting a big turnout today, huh?
Absolutely. We've got 500 people and people knocking at the door to get in. So Jan does an excellent job putting this together, and it always turns out to be a great event. It's beautiful in there, and we're excited to talk more about what's going on in Madison County.
Jan, tell us about the Madison County Business League and Foundation. What does it do? What's its mission?
Well, the Business League was created in 2008 by the Madison County Board of Supervisors and the Madison County Economic Development Authority to serve as stakeholders, private stakeholders for the County Economic Development Office. So we are up to 300 members now, strong, and our mission was to unite the leading business owners and decision makers in the county with the elected officials on all levels, from the locally elected officials up to our congressional delegation, to discuss topics and influence policy on infrastructure, education, healthcare, workforce development, and quality of life.
Katie, is it fair to say that the League and Foundation, the organization, serves as somewhat of a conduit that gives a voice to the business community of Madison County so that they can make sure that our elected officials are aware of what their needs are to allow our county to thrive?
Absolutely. The Business League is one of the strongest business groups that I've seen, honestly, and we work nationwide, and so it's just really a privilege to be a part of this. Jan and the founders have done a tremendous job over the years of developing this and supporting businesses. And, of course, supporting businesses allows our communities, our children, to have better education systems, for the businesses to be this invested and this involved with making sure our community has what it needs to thrive and grow is unprecedented. So and of course we've seen that with the developments that have been happening in Madison County over the past few years. Obviously Amazon being the largest, but many others. So it's a great organization, and I'm glad that it's here to help advance things that our business community feels are very important to help it grow and help our community.
Jan, besides this event, which I've been a part of, certainly as an attendee for many years, it seems like it gets bigger every year, but you guys conduct events throughout the year.
We do. We have our large annual banquet luncheon at the Country Club at Jackson in October with Makita. We partner with our partner to host that event, and we always have some exciting speaker to come. Last year we had AWS due to the location of their new data centers that they're building here, the investment that they've made in Madison County. But we also have other events of various sizes to really inform the business community and educate them on exactly what's going on. We have other legislative events that we honor our Madison County delegation, and they give us reports on exactly what's happening with policy and how a recap of the legislative session. And then we have other events, quarterly economic development outlook events, where Makita shares the latest and greatest news in economic development for the county. We also host smaller events for our programs that we sponsor, along with Makita, our executive leadership program, our young professionals, which is a big group, very dynamic group, and also our youth leadership.
Yeah, talk about that for a minute, Katie, because I think that's a bit unique, the youth leadership programs and the young professionals programs in general. We send them on their way to do a project for us and come back and provide a presentation. It's always enjoyable, and it's incredible how creative they are and how invested and interested they are in the betterment of the county.
And yeah, exactly. And that's something that we stress very, strongly, is that we start when they're in high school. And we do reality fairs, which is great. We go up in North Madison County and we talk about money and how far your money can go and what you can do if you apply yourself. And then we reach out to our businesses and ask them to invest in our children, for them to have internship programs, for them to be involved, and they respond. And it's really great to see that, connecting the business community to our young leaders, because we don't want them to leave. And if obviously they'll leave for a little while and go explore the world, but we want them to come back and build Madison County. And we want them to feel confident that they can do that. And by plugging up these young people, and of course, these high school students with businesses, they can see that that's possible. They can see it's possible to come back and grow and build in our area, raise their children, and that's what we want. So it's really encouraging. They get really excited about it. We get really excited about it. We get to see young talent and help them grow. Jan, earlier we had one of our alumni that is now in college reach out to us. He's in engineering, and he wanted to come back, and he wanted to figure out how he could practice in our area and who he could connect with for an internship to come back. And that's why we're here. And then, in terms of our professional group, we take professionals from all different areas of Madison County and different types of businesses, and we ask them to be invested. These are young, up-and-coming people, leadership in their companies, and we ask them to use that talent and help us find solutions in Madison County. And they rise to the occasion every time, and that's a testament of just what we have in Madison County in terms of our intellectual capital, and honestly the passion that is just spreading throughout the state and the country, and that's why people are coming here. We're excited to be a part of it.
Always impressive, all the young folks in our county.
Absolutely.
We're so blessed with a great complement of young people that will be the future of our county. So, Jan, what about the event today? Big attendance. We got lots of great speakers lined up. What's the sort of the purpose here?
The purpose of today's event is to show Madison County's gratitude to our legislature and our statewide elected officials and leadership and our congressional delegation for the many ways that they have supported our projects in the past, and we hope to for the future. And we've been truly blessed and honored to be able to have this time to let them know and express our appreciation to them.
Katie, you alluded to it a bit earlier, but the county of Madison has been blessed with just some incredible new economic development projects that I believe are going to change the complexion not only of our county but our state.
Absolutely. We have so much investment now. Joey Deason is doing a great job leading Makita, along with the Board of Supervisors and our mayors. Everyone is invested. You know, sometimes you see areas where you don't have everybody on the same page. That's not the case. When it comes to recruiting talent, recruiting businesses, and even large-scale companies like AWS, everybody is moving in the same direction. We're moving traffic, like Jan alluded to earlier. Infrastructure is critically important. And, you know, everybody needs that infrastructure around the state. But it's been great. We have our leaders coming today where we can say thank you, because what we've done as the Business League is given them what they need to go to the rest of the legislature and talk about how what's happening in Madison County is affecting the entire state. It's bringing all of us up. And so, you know, that's really exciting, working together, working with them. I think today's a great opportunity to hear from our speaker and our leadership, and then also to say thank you for what's happening in Madison County. Those investments are huge, and they're bringing talent back to our state, all over the state, not just Madison County.
Jan, you've been involved with this organization a long time. Is this a model that we perhaps would be better served if it were replicated across the state? Because this is a unique organization. This is different than the typical Chamber of Commerce, for example.
That's true. I tell people when we're recruiting that we are not a Chamber of Commerce, that we're an economic development support organization that's here for Makita, for the Economic Development Authority, to support them in ways that the taxpayer money with the government cannot. And so we're very proud of how far we've come. But I have to be honest with you, Gerard, when I first started and they hired me, they said, you just do what you want to do, and if you get too far out there, we'll reel you back. So I have had tremendous leadership from the start and support. Of course, we all know it's about relationships and connections, and that's been my greatest joy, is to be able to connect all of these businesses with other businesses to help them grow. And Madison County is very much invested. The reason why we've been successful, in my opinion, is because we have great schools and we have successful businesses that created that environment.
Absolutely. Real quick, we got about 30 seconds. If someone wants to become a member, how do they do that?
Well, they can contact us at 601-832-5592 or our website at MadisonCountyBusinessLeague.com.
Katie Bryant-Snell and Jan Collins with the Madison County Business League and Foundation. Thanks for coming on, ladies.
Thank you, Gerard. We appreciate it.
You bet. We're coming right back with Congressman Michael Guest. Stay with us.
From the Film.fm. Matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Once again, we are live at the West End in downtown Jackson. We're here for the Madison County Business League and Foundation annual League and Legislature Luncheon. We're pleased to welcome now Michael Guest. He's a congressman who represents Mississippi's 3rd District. Congressman Guest, always good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Gerard, thanks for having me back. It is great to be in Mississippi. Beautiful day, and glad to get to be here with the Madison Business League and hear about the great things that they're doing and get an update from our state legislators.
So, do you represent the entirety of Madison County, Congressman, or do you have a good bit of it?
Yeah, I do not. I represent basically everything north of Gluckstadt, right there at the Nissan plant. Everything south of the Nissan plant is in my district. Everything north is in Congressman Thompson's district. So that is one of, I think, 4 counties that is actually a split district.
Okay.
And I have a couple in mind. Not only do I have Madison County, which is a split district. I have a portion of Hinds County, basically everything east of Interstate I-55, and then I have a portion of Jones County as well. So I have 3 partial counties in my district that I serve.
Okay. So you guys are off. When you got to go back?
Monday morning. I'll
Monday
be on
morning.
the early bird flight up Monday morning. It's been great to be home. We got home about middle of last week after we were able to get the CR passed out of the House and over to the Senate. As you know, we're in session about 3 out of every 4 weeks. The fourth week we're generally off to be back in the district. We're not on vacation. We're not just sitting on home resting, but it gives me the chance to get out and go to events such as this. I got a chance to see you this morning. Started early this morning, meeting with a coffee group. After I leave here, I'll be going out to the 172nd for a groundbreaking for a new fire station. So I'll be joining Senator Hyde-Smith out there for that, spending some time with our military. And so when I'm home, I try to do my best to circulate around the district, and particularly this week with the storms that hit over the weekend. Monday morning, me and my team were out through several of our different counties that suffered damages, meeting with some of the elected officials and getting a kind of a first-hand view of the damage that happened over the weekend.
Yeah. Devastating tornadoes, and Mississippi has been, unfortunately, no stranger to these sorts of storms coming through in the last few years. But, man, our emergency response personnel are top-notch, are they not?
You're exactly right. And look, the warning that we had for these storms coming through was amazing. I mean, we started getting warnings about a week out. Hey, this is going to be a very rough weekend. And we started being able to tell people, to warn people ahead of time. Then as the storms begin to hit on Saturday, as you're watching the local news, I mean, they're able to almost pinpoint it street by street as to where the storms will be heading. And so it's great for us to be able to get that information out to the public. And I think that's why we only saw, I think there were half a dozen fatalities that were reported in this storm. But when you're out on the ground seeing the damage and destruction, I was surprised that the deaths weren't 10 times that.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think a lot of that goes to our being able to get information out quickly, people paying attention as they know the destructive nature of these storms. And then after the storms, to see the response from not only local officials but utility crews that were out there. I mean, I can't count the number of utility trucks that were out there restoring power to people in those areas that suffered damage. And so a great response. There'll be a federal component to that. So there'll be some federal funding that will be requested by MEMA. MEMA will be compiling all the requests, gathering all the data, submitting it to the federal government, and then the federal delegation will be supporting that request, and you'll see some federal dollars flowing back to Mississippi for storm recovery.
Appreciate all your efforts there, certainly to visit with the folks down there. Mississippians are resilient. They rebuild. It's no fun going through this, but better days certainly ahead. Let's turn our attention to Washington. You might need to take a couple of naps while you're home over the next week, because since the president was inaugurated, it's been warp speed.
It has. I mean, you see how he has flooded the zone, the shock and awe campaign of everything that he has been able to put together in just 2 months. And, it's hard to believe that just 2 months have passed since the president's been in office for all of the things that he has been able to accomplish. And I think the two things right now that the president should be most proud of is, one, how he has been able to secure the border almost overnight.
Unbelievable.
Reinstituting the Remain in Mexico policy, declaring a federal emergency there on the border, being able to surge resources there to help local law enforcement, our CBP there on the border, once again beginning wall construction. And so we saw the numbers in February drop to the number of encounters were below 8,400 for the entire month. There were many days under the Biden administration we would see that many in a single day.
Yeah.
And so when the number of encounters has dropped more than 90% in the 2 months that the president's been in office, that has been a huge victory for the president, something that he should be very proud of. He campaigned on that. That was probably his top campaign issue. And he's been able to fulfill that campaign promise.
Yeah.
And then what we've seen on the president being able to identify wasteful spending within the federal government, all of the things that the Doge Group has been able to uncover, the wasteful spending that we've been able to stop. just to this point has been amazing. And I think there's going to be a lot more to come. I think as we continue to look into different federal agencies, the post office has requested DOGE come in and do an audit of everything that's going on within the Postal Service, and they'll find ways there. I think as we get into the Department of Defense, even though I'm a defense hawk and I want to see us fund our military, I want to make sure that those dollars are being spent appropriately. And so the president, I think right now is well on track to be remembered at least for two things, which is that he secured the border and that he cut wasteful spending. And I think you're going to see over the next several months ahead, we're going to see the economy grow. We're starting to see inflation slowly come down. I know the market is kind of up and down right now. There's some instability in the market, but as the president begins to settle out on some of his tariffs, trade policies, I think we're going to see continued economic growth.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. The markets are in a bit of turmoil right now just because they're not quite sure what to make of everything. It's moving at such a rapid rate. But I think by the end of the year, I think we're going to see an unbelievable bull market in the last couple of quarters. So you guys got this CR essentially funding the government for the most part at Biden level, Biden-era spending levels for 6 months. This was at the president's request. Let's point this out. He wanted to give you guys time to work through regular order. You and I have talked about this many times. You think with 6 months we can make that happen so that when the government runs out of money essentially at the end of September, we can negotiate and pass 12 spending bills to fund the discretionary aspect of government?
Well, I tell you, I mean, we're going to try to do that, and we've done a better job in the House the last couple of years in the Senate. I'll say that this year, because I serve on the House Appropriations Committee, we were able to pass all 12 spending bills out of committee. We were able to pass half of those bills off of the House floor and send to the Senate. The Senate, on the other hand, under Schumer, and so this was a different regime, they passed 0 spending bills. Right. They refused to take up any of our spending bills, refused to negotiate with us on appropriations bills, and so we were stuck having to do this CR. You're exactly right, a CR that was supported by the president. But what I want your listeners to know is this CR actually cut spending from last year. The first time I've been in Congress, probably the first time in a number of years, we have actually cut spending. Now, the cut in spending was small.
$7 billion.
About $7 billion. And so I think we cut $13 billion from discretionary. We increased defense spending by 6. So
with a net increase. Decrease.
Yeah. So a net decrease of $7 billion. And so for us to be able to do that, to actually cut
that's
spending.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly amazing. And then as we're going to at some point get into the rescission packages where the president is going to send to Congress money that they want us, that with previously been appropriated, that we don't need to claw back, you're going to see those savings continue to grow. So that is a crucial step in the right direction.
So one other thing I think we want to cover before we go is how about these lawmakers in robes, as we refer to them? Have you ever seen a situation where it seems like judges are running the country?
Truly amazing. You know, if you think about it, there are 677 federal judges. And for each of those federal judges to be able to have the authority to overrule the actions of the president, I think is truly a miscarriage of justice. This is not the United States Supreme Court, the full 9-member body coming in and telling the administration that they have overstepped their boundaries. This is a single judge, in many cases, in very liberal districts, appointed. That's right, appointed by Obama, appointed by President Biden, who is coming in and attempting to stop the lawful actions of the President of the United States. And so I think the President is right to be angry. I think the American public is right to be frustrated by what we're seeing. And I think the Supreme Court needs to step in and needs to get a hold of some of these federal district judges.
I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but deporting the people that Mr. Trump's deporting, it seems like we could rely on existing law easily to do that.
No doubt. The president is truly acting within the scope of the current law. He has not overstepped his boundaries, and the judge was out of line.
Congressman Michael Guest, who represents Mississippi's 3rd District, has been our guest on Middays. Appreciate it, Congressman.
Thank you, Gerard.
Always good to see you. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break. We're at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature Luncheon. It's Phil Buffington, the Government Affairs Committee Chair, next.
I'm Sonny Hall.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America.
Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
I feel free. I feel free. I feel free.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays live at the West End in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation annual Luncheon. League and Legislature Luncheon is how it is defined. It's Phil Buffington, the Government Affairs Committee Chair for the Madison County Business League and Foundation and past Chairman of the Madison County Business League and Foundation Community Trust Board of Directors. Phil, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good to be here, Gerard. Thank you.
Have you peeked inside the room there?
I have.
Man.
I know. It's
lots
incredible.
Of folks. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is so good. I mean, it really is. We're so blessed to be Mississippians, Americans, and Madison Countyans today. And to have all these people here to talk about the great things going on in Madison County and hear from such notable figures throughout government, that's really a big part of what the Government Affairs Committee of the Madison County Business League and Foundation does, serve as that conduit, that collaborative voice and platform with the business community of Madison County and government.
You're so correct. And I do want to stop and thank you for all your service, because I know you're on the Makita board, and we work closely together. And as you said, what the Government Affairs Committee tries to do for the Business League is really be that conduit between the Board of Supervisors, Makita's board, the state leaders in the legislative delegation, and the greater legislature. And you are always so helpful with that.
Well, I appreciate that, Phil. It's an honor to serve and to work alongside such high-quality individuals such as yourself, the other board members, the Madison County Business League Foundation, Makita. We just got a fantastic team, and if you think about it, virtually everything we accomplish, if not everything we accomplish in Madison County, it's all the result of a team effort, a concerted team effort.
I agree with you. And it's that partnership concept where we each push each other to be the best we can be and make Madison County as great as it can be. And we've been really successful over the last several years.
Yeah, totally agree. So one of the things that you do in leading, and you do a fantastic job in leading the Government Affairs Committee, is you sort of poll, you solicit input from the members of the board and the business community that are members of the Madison County Business League Foundation. You personally, I know, have gone out and talked to the local elected leaders across the county to find out what they got going on. And your purpose is to collect information from them, from the other stakeholders, the business community, and deliver that to our elected officials at the statewide level, the supervisor, local level, all the way up and down, so that hopefully we can get great things done.
I agree. It's a process we go through every year, and we meet with as many elected officials as we can, gather that information, come back to the Government Affairs Committee, which you're a member of, and let us process it and move it along to not only the board of the Business League, but the board of Madison County Economic Development Authority, and then the Board of Supervisors signs off on it and approves it in a resolution, and we submit that to the state leaders and the legislative delegation and the legislative body in hopes of being able to influence them to help us even more in Madison County, which we think is really good, and we really appreciate what they do and the whole process.
In fact, tell them about this. We call them together. We meet at a location in Madison County. We bring in that delegation and the members of the Madison County Business League and Foundation, and you guys actually present, well, these are our priorities.
That's correct. Each December, we bring everybody in for a breakfast, all the legislature and the state leaders, and present that agenda to them, and there are our priorities for that year. And I will tell you, I look back at what those priorities have been going back to like 2016, and one thing that's been consistent has been the improvement of infrastructure in Madison County, which everybody has been really working hard for, and I think we've done some really good things there and really accomplished a lot, and a lot more good things to come.
No doubt. The goal, I think, is fair to say, Phil, is it not, is to make Madison County create as conducive an environment as we possibly can to promote business growth, expansion, investment.
Absolutely. And our hope is that we do enough in Madison County that the surrounding counties in the state benefit from that too. And it's our belief that they will.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I really believe this is a model that perhaps should be replicated in the other counties. I'm proud of what we've done in Madison County.
Yeah, and we really have. We will get together and try to come up with plans for issues that are coming up. And our hope is that people will duplicate that process throughout the state and improve other areas of the state. That's always our hope.
Yeah. And most of our needs, as you indicated, or our requests, generally centered around infrastructure, which I would argue is a core function of government.
I agree. We've been really fortunate. But again, I hate to use the term, but I will. I think there's a really significant return on investment when people invest in Madison County.
No doubt.
I think it's good for the county, for sure, but definitely for the state and the rest of the counties, too.
Phil, thanks for coming on, and thanks for all you do, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gerard.
Phil Buffington, Government Affairs Committee Chairman for the Madison County Business League and Foundation, has been our guest. It's time for a break. It's top of the hour. That means Fox News and SuperTalk News coming your way. On the other side, we've got Transportation Commissioner for the Central District, Willie Simmons. And then we've got Senator Briggs Hobson, also Representative Jonathan McMillan, and Sam Kelly. He's on the Madison County School Board. Stay with us.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays, and we are live at the Westin in downtown Jackson. That is where we have relocated the Element Wealth Studio today. We're here for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature Annual Luncheon. Keynote speaker today is the Speaker of the House, Jason White. Now, we're waiting for Commissioner Willie Simmons. He should be joining us shortly. All that noise you hear in the background, folks, we're in the lobby here, just outside the big ballroom where all the tables are set up, where folks will be having lunch pretty soon. So we apologize for that, but they're starting to make their way in to the ballroom itself. And so we'll just have to deal with that for right now. So yesterday, also after the show, Rhino, of course, a lot of action down at the Capitol, the state Capitol, that is. In that, let's see if I get this right now, the House and the Senate each passed legislation to advance various tax reform measures. But in essence, the Senate passed a bill that we talked about yesterday that took the House bill and inserted the Senate's provisions, the Senate's plan in it. And then over there in the House, they essentially took the Senate bill and inserted the House's plan in it. And folks on both sides of the Capitol, the leaders more specifically, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, of course, over in the Senate, and then down there in the House, it would be the Speaker, Jason White. They took to the old social media to announce the passing of legislation on both sides there. Are we going to conference? Possibly. I tell you this, I think this is kind of crazy here, Rhino. I think both sides expect the other side to concur and thus avoiding conference. So just to kind of break that down for you, the Senate now has a bill that is the House bill that they essentially struck and inserted the Senate's language, and the House has a bill that they essentially struck and inserted the House's language. So the House expects the Senate to concur with the Senate bill, and the Senate expects the House to concur with the House bill. Did I get that right, Rhino? It's a lot of ping pong.
That sounds right.
I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I don't think the House is going to concur with the Senate's approach. I don't think the Senate's going to concur with the House's approach. I don't think that's the case. Will they get to a conference? Here's one thing I have concerns about in conference. Concerns by meaning, and what I mean by that is that we may get kind of a legal snag, a point of order, if you will, because the Senate has inserted this, Commissioner Simmons, the Senate has inserted the PERS language, the new tier. We'll get to that later. Right now, it's our pleasure to welcome Transportation Commissioner for Mississippi's Central District, Commissioner Willie Simmons. Commissioner, good to see you, sir. Glad so much that you were able to join us today. Yeah, pull your mic up to your face a little bit closer there. Let's see, Alex will help you out.
Okay.
Yeah. Just want to make sure because we got a lot of noise in the background. So, there you go. So, yesterday, I had the privilege of attending a little birthday celebration for you there, Commissioner. That was pretty neat. That was pretty cool. Brad White held that at his house.
Gerard, I'm so glad you came by. It was a delight to see you, as well as everybody else, to include a person like Governor Haley Barbour, who came and say happy birthday.
Sure did. That was awesome. Congratulations, sir. Great event, great turnout. Everybody there to celebrate your birthday, having a good time. Really appreciate Transportation Executive Director Brad White for putting that on. All right, so give us an update. I know you're watching closely. We were just talking about the tax bills that are being debated down at the Capitol there. Each of those have a provision in them, Commissioner, to derive more revenue from fuel sales in the form of a fuel tax, the excise tax. You're well aware that's the majority of the funding the Transportation Department receives at the state level comes from that tax.
Exactly.
So how do you feel about the need for additional revenue? And I know you've talked about that, as have your peers in the northern and the southern district, the executive director as well. The message is you got to say that you need more money just to keep up with the capacity and maintenance requirements for the state of Mississippi.
Gerard, you're so right. And I want to say I want to thank you. I listen to your radio show frequently. And you're one of the citizens of the state of Mississippi who gets it and understand that infrastructure is so important. And in order to make sure infrastructure is taken care of so that our citizens can get where they need to go as well as our cargo, we need more revenue. And you have advocated for that, basically saying that we need it. So we want to be thankful this year to the legislature. Both the House and the Senate have put infrastructure high on their radar, to include the governor. So we are, for the first time in more than 26 years that I've served in the Senate, that we have a situation where both the House and the Senate and the governor are all on board saying infrastructure is important and we got to get more money. So the way in which both the House and the Senate are looking at funding it is going to add to the fuel tax. We don't know which one of those is going to come out. But you, like I know, that sausage is made at the Capitol. And with both of them having put emphasis on it, with the Senate saying they're going to give us a phase-in of 9 cents, 3 cents each year over a 3-year period, that would get us up to somewhere around $200 million near, a little bit lower, a little above a year, because they're also going to index it. But in addition to that, the Senate is saying they're going to allow us to keep the lottery money that we currently have coming in, which is $80 million, and they will continue to pay the $40 million match. So when we put all that together, it puts us pretty close to where the House is. The House basically said they wanted to put a percentage on it, 5%, to allow us to get the money that would come from that. That would generate also around $300 million or so. But they was going to remove the lottery money from us. We are very pleased to see both the Senate and the House, and with where they are today, we feel like the Department of Transportation should get some new revenue.
So one of the things I suspect you guys are watching there, Commissioners, that the federal government, is on a slashing spending spree here, and it could affect your revenue from the federal government potentially.
It could affect it because you well know We upside down with the federal government. We get about 51% of our funding from the federal government, and the rest of it comes from the fuel tax, the lottery, and other money that we get here in the state. Also, what we have to take into consideration is that the change in attitude of people driving, carpooling, as well as into the cars that's no longer using fuel. So we're going to be put in a situation where going to the pump is not going to be adequate enough to take care of what we're currently doing. Maintenance, we need $400 million a year in order to take care of the highways that we have. Capacity project, another average $200 million. The legislature has been good over the past 3 years. It's given us a significant amount of money, but we need recurring money so that we can plan, so that our partners who build highways can be prepared to build their companies up and take care of the needs of the state of Mississippi.
Executive Director White shared with me last time he was on the program, Commissioner, a chart that showed the rather sharp increase, the inflation in road construction that's occurred over the last 5-7 years. Is that your understanding as well?
It is ridiculous. There's no way that we can keep up with inflation rate. A few years ago, the legislature gave us some additional money, and the money we got from the federal government, a lot of that was eaten up with inflation, and we were not able to do as much as we had planned and wanted to do. We have not seen a significant increase on fuel tax since 1987 or 1989 when it actually went into place. What it cost us to do a highway, a mile highway at that particular time, it is probably 400% increase. We can't operate today with 1989 money.
Understand. So before we go, we got about 30, 40 seconds left. To those who say, you can just cut expenses at the Department of Transportation to produce more available funds for projects, what do you say to that, Commissioner?
It's not enough to do it. When you talk about a small project like, I'm going to give you one in the Central District up in Greenville. 20 years ago, Highway 82 bypass would have cost us probably around $100 million or less. Today, it's costing us in excess of $120 million.
I got you.
You can't do it with yesterday's money.
Gotcha. Commissioner Willie Simmons, he's the Transportation Commissioner for the Central District of Mississippi. He's been our guest. Always good to see you.
Gerard, thank you. And
thank you for coming.
Thank you for being a friend and a supporter.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're coming right back with Senator Briggs Thompson. Stay with us.
Come on, join the line.
From the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We're waiting for our guest, Senator Briggs Thompson. And to the C Spire text line, then I'm going to get back on the tax reform legislation that our legislature is considering. Jimmy from Enid says, contract more of the work out on the roads. Our state is terribly inefficient at doing it themselves. Jimmy, actually, the vast majority of it is contracted out. One of the problems is there are only 4 road construction and maintenance companies in the state of Mississippi, in general 4, that respond to the bids. And if you look at the history of that, the cost for those services from third-party contractors, even though it's all competitively bid, is higher, much higher than it was a few short years ago. The Department of Transportation itself, the State Department of Transportation, actually does very little of the work that is produced by the State Department of Transportation. It actually is done by third parties for the reasons that you pointed out. The state is not as efficient at it. But you can't deny. I'm all for rooting out extraneous, wasteful spending across the spectrum of agencies, and including the Department of Transportation. But you can't deny the fact that inflation, just as it has hit your personal household, it's also hit the Department of Transportation. So road construction costs, and by the way, these weren't analyses conducted by the Department of Transportation. These are findings from national organizations that track this information and report on it, analyze it. And it's pretty clear, but I don't think you would have to be really familiar with the industry or all the inner workings of it to understand and recognize that costs are up. Certainly they're up since 1987, but they're up considerably even in the past few years. Some of that is the result of the increase in petroleum products, which has contributed greatly to the cost of transportation infrastructure, construction. So the question is, what's the right amount? I mean, I think that's a fair question. What's the right amount of additional revenue? I am concerned, as in you could tell that from the question I asked the commissioner, that the federal government is going to start cutting down on the amount of money it sends to states across an array of programs, transportation being no exception. I've said many times I'm deeply concerned about cuts to Medicaid. And even though the Democrats are fear-mongering about cuts to Medicaid, the fact is the framework passed by the U.S. House does involve cutting the Medicaid program. Now, there's no doubt that there's fraud in the Medicaid program, waste, fraud, and abuse. Doing a lot of research on that over the last few days, one of the things I've learned is that a lot of those improper payments really aren't waste, fraud, and abuse. They're just payments that went out without all the proper administrative process. And the administrative process to distributing money from these agencies at the federal level, including Medicaid, is rather brutal. I mean, it's ridiculously complicated and convoluted and difficult to understand. What we need is automation, and this is what the DOJ folks are doing. They realize that Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, they need massive modernization of their automated systems. That would cut down dramatically. In fact, I believe it's the only way to eliminate the improper payments. But no, it's not waste. So somebody said, and that's called waste. No, it's not. The payments are improper because the paperwork wasn't in order. The payments are still due. The recipients of those payments are still entitled to them. Much of that, honestly, are medical providers that are filing the claims. So that's different than, well, that person wasn't entitled to it, or that person stole the money, or they used it for improper purposes. This is a matter of we just didn't have all the paperwork in place, and the payment went out perhaps prematurely. Is there some bona fide improper payments in that process? Sure. Here's the bottom line, though. It's a lot of money. When you think about it just as an individual item, there ain't no doubt about that. And, man, we started talking about this back in 2023 when the CBO released their report highlighting some $240 billion of improper payments to Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And Medicaid topped the list at about $70 billion annually. There's no doubt. And that's a little more than 10% of total payments. No doubt about it. That needs to be addressed. Automation, in my view, is the way to address that. We got a lot of work to do there. And I think the DOJ team is going to accomplish that. But back to the original point, from the state of Mississippi's perspective, we're looking at, I think, significant cuts to the Medicaid program and the amount of money that makes its way to the state of Mississippi and all the states to operate the Medicaid program. I support that, by the way. I'd like to see us further reduce the size of the federal Medicaid program and push more of the responsibility to operate the program and fund it to the states and remove that from the federal government's expense portfolio, because that is out of control and just way too much. That's what we need to do. All right. right, so I'm looking for our guests right now. One more thing about the PERS program. The Senate inserted the PERS legislation that would create a new tier in their tax reform bill, and that could be problematic. Okay, so because it's not really germane to tax reform, but it is a way to address the PERS program. It's not the end-all solution whatsoever, but it could certainly address it to some extent. So we got Senator Briggs Hobson that's about to join us. You want to? Okay. I'm just looking. We got 12:20 if you want to do that. So, okay. All right. Senator Briggs Hobson is about to join us. Sorry about that, folks. We're just doing a little scheduling. This is a really difficult situation down here with the crowd piling in, stuff going on down at the Capitol. All right. Senator.
All right.
Thank you for coming on,
I'm
sir.
a little hot here.
I think I turned it down some. We should be good now. Hey. Senator Briggs Hobson is our guest. He, of course, chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee. So right now you guys have been talking about more of related to getting the money in besides sending it out on the appropriations side. You passed legislation. We were just reviewing it. Passed legislation yesterday, essentially inserting the Senate bill plus Senator Sparks' PERS package, essentially, in the tax bill.
Correct.
That was sent over by the House, and the House sort of did the reverse of that. They put their language in the bill you guys sent over to them. Break it down. Where's all this going? I mean, we've been talking about all the details. Where do you think this goes now?
Well, let me just back up and say we took the Senate bill and we took a tax elimination proposal that has triggers and guardrails and things we thought were very fiscally responsible. We spent a lot of time saying that we don't want to do anything that's going to wreck the state. We want to make sure that as we work our way towards tax elimination, income tax elimination, that we did it in a very responsible way. And I think that's what we did. We did include, as you said, the retirement plans that Senator Sparks handles, which includes a Tier 5. And let me be super clear for our listeners here. I've already had 2 calls today, one on the way over here this morning, Gerard, from a friend who's in the system. And I said, don't worry. You will not be affected by this at all. This would only be for new employees. And then there was an ORP portion, the optional retirement plan, that would deal with primarily just IHL, a few, a couple of universities. So it's not going to have a big impact statewide, but it would certainly affect some that are in the retirement system with IHL.
Yeah. And
that's future also.
Yeah.
Future also.
Now, I don't think, honestly, that this is an exclusive solution to the PERS problem, but it stops the bleeding. I think that's the most important thing. So new employees in state government, the public sector, would enroll in this new Tier 5 as opposed to the broken Tier 4.
Yeah, I had this discussion also with somebody else this morning about some of the things that happened back in the 90s that we're paying for now as a state. And, decisions were made, I'm assuming, on the best information they had at the time. I've heard stories about why they did it. Obviously, one of those was going up to a 3% COLA. The second one was moving into 2 times the amount on the top 4 years from a 1.8% rate. So both of those have caused enormous stress, financial stress on our system. And what we've done now, it's not that anybody wants to do it, Gerard. You can appreciate this. Sure. It's that something has to be done. You can either ignore the problem and just hope somebody fixes it down the road, or you can go ahead and attack the problem, and I think that's what we've tried to do in the Senate.
We've ignored it long enough, and every day we ignore it, it gets more expensive to fix. So,
and look, let me add this. For anyone that's in the retirement system or contemplating retirement in the system, beware that if you don't do something to fix it, you're going to be left in a situation where maybe you don't get the retirement you want. Everybody said, don't touch the retirement system. Please, Briggs, don't touch the retirement system. But at the same time, I also want to say we've got to make some corrections for future employees, or otherwise your retirement system may be affected because of nothing that anybody does. It's just going to happen because the thing starts going underwater.
Senator Briggs Hobson's been our guest. Thanks a lot. We're coming right back, folks.
It's time. Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
everyone. It's Middays from the downtown Weston in Jackson, Mississippi. We're chatting with Senator Briggs Hobson. Going to continue the discussion. Then we're going to bring in Representatives Jonathan McMillan and Clay Manziel. All right, so, Senator, before we went to break, we were just doing a quick breakdown of the Senate tax legislation. And key differences, and I'll get you to respond. The first is the Senate does not increase the general sales tax. The House bill does 7 to 8% over 2 years. Little change from the original writing, the original draft, which would have taken it to 8.5. You guys have an increase in the excise tax on fuel, 3 cents over 3 years, up to 9 cents additional. The House a little more bold in that respect, with 5 cents converted from a 5% sales tax to 5 cents per year over 3 years. But I'd say the big focus again on the top line headline aspect of the legislation, the income tax. The House bill phases that out essentially over 10 years, beginning in 2028, I believe, is when it starts that process, taking it to 3, 5, and 27, then over 10 years. No triggers whatsoever. The Senate bill, this is what I want you to talk about, takes it down initially over 3 years, but then stops it there and says, okay, any future cuts we do with triggers.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's talk about what we originally passed in the Senate, and that was a guaranteed tax cut. No triggers, it was really, really easy to explain.
A cut, but not full elimination.
Correct. We were going down, obviously, as most listeners know, we're already on the path to a 4% tax, income tax. We were taking it down to 3%, actually 2.99%. So there would be no sales tax increase. There would be the 3 cents per year, 3-year gas tax increase, and the income tax will work its way down to 2.99. We thought that was very easy to explain, very easy to understand, and we also felt like, Gerard, we've shown, our history shows that we'll continue to go down if the government and the economy bears it. So we felt like it was responsible all the way around. And no offense to the House plan where you just march your way down without regard to the conditions around you so much. I mean, they did have some things in there, but not to the extent where we felt like we could go to that place, we could stop and look at it. Now, what we came back with on this married proposal yesterday was leaving that in and then using the triggers. And the main trigger in there is based on the difference between, or the delta between, what we had in a percent of revenue versus a percent of appropriations. And depending on what that number is, and roughly in the low $400 million range, if there's that kind of difference between appropriations and revenue and what we're spending, we would work anywhere from a 0.2, 0.25, or 0.3% decrease. So it would vary. You couldn't say it was going to go down a certain amount of the rate. Yeah. Correct. So we felt like that would ensure that we kept appropriations in check, but we also were looking at our revenue features. And, you never know what's going to happen. You could have something catastrophic happen that changes everything, and that way it would put a freeze on the tax elimination. But if times were good, you would certainly step down towards eliminating the income tax.
Yeah. So the difference is that the House doesn't have that sort of requirement. It just starts to phase out the income tax over that 10-year period and equal 10% of the rate increments, so to speak. So,
and I didn't see what they passed on Senate Bill 3095. They obviously, as you mentioned earlier, amended our plan, and they passed something else that I have not seen. I came off the floor yesterday. I did hear that they incorporated some of the things that we had, but largely went back to what their original House bill was.
Okay, so final question for you as the Appropriations Chair in the Senate. You hear this as well as I. What about cutting spending? What can we do there to eliminate some spending to give us more room to cut taxes?
Well, the first thing that I want to talk about, if I can, before I answer that, is you should know, the listeners should know that many agencies, and we're used to this. The old saying was, look, the good news is that, or the bad news sometimes you start with, is the agency's asking for $1 billion over what we have in revenue. The good news is the same $1 billion as last year. That was the old saying we had. Now it was gone from $2 billion, from $1 billion to $2 billion. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, we've got some agencies that we're always looking away and have shaved off money in various things, and we're looking at ways to pull back some parts of the government where we feel like we've given them things, some tools to meet their mission, but then we may have to cut some things back. Other thing that I have to tell people is, we've got three federal lawsuits that we're dealing with. People forget about that, and they're obligations that we're going to have to meet as a state to get out of those lawsuits. Child Protective Services is one of those. They've got some significant needs, and I don't want to get into details now, but I can give you an earful about some things with CPS. We've got DOC, Department of Corrections lawsuits, several of those. If you look at our deficit appropriation, we're paying attorneys, really large sums of money to take care of these lawsuits. And finally, we've got, first in CPS, the Olivia Wise settlement, and then we've got a mental health case that's pending right now. So there are some things that we can't ignore, and then the big 800-pound gorilla is what's going to happen with Medicaid at the federal level. Something we totally don't. It's out of our control.
No doubt.
Depending on what they do at the federal level, that could affect the state budget to hundreds of millions of dollars. But we're always trying to keep it lean and mean. And as you've seen, even with the revenue increases we've had, the only real big expense we've had the last few years is the revised funding formula for education. That was about a $240 million hit. But other than that, it's basically trying to keep up with a few inflationary items.
Gotcha.
We did have a few pay raises in that inflationary period, but obviously the cost of eggs and milk and so forth are going up for not only for our agencies, but also for employees.
Appreciate it, Senator. Great.
Thank you. Always good to see you.
Good to see you, too. All right. I think we're going to bring in Representatives Jonathan McMillan and Clay Mansell. Here we go. We ready? You ready? Here we go. We got Jonathan. Here he comes. All right. Appreciate it, Senator. Appreciate it. All right. Clay Mansell is here. Oh, let me turn you on here. And we also got Representatives Jonathan McMillan. Okay. So we got a little bit of time here. You guys passed your version of tax reform yesterday. That's kind of the big thing we're talking about today. It looks like that all Republicans supported it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me turn it down a little bit. So we got all Republicans supported.
Well, I mean, if you really want to be, we passed our version of tax reform, the second or third day?
HB1. HB1.
So that's been 3 months ago.
Yeah. So we were just discussing the difference between the House and Senate's version. First for you, Clay, are you comfortable with this legislation?
Yes, sir.
You voted for it, obviously. So
we did. We actually voted again today because it was held on a motion yesterday, so we got to reaffirm our vote today.
Okay. And what about you, Representative McMillan?
Absolutely. We've been on board since day one. I think, obviously the time that we passed HB1 to now, I think there's been some tweaks, and that's the way the process works. I mean, you get everybody's input in, and I think it makes the legislation stronger.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And we got still planning to send PERS $100 million of lottery proceeds in this version as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's still in there. But you guys haven't really talked about, or I've not seen any legislation that would create this new tier, Tier 5. That's what Senator Sparks, he introduced over there in the Senate, just to kind of stop the bleeding. All new employees would be members of that program. Do you think that's something, Jonathan, we ought to consider taking up?
At some point, we're going to have to, the whole system needs to be, obviously reevaluated. We can't just keep on infusing money into it. I don't know if that's the right approach. So I think, maybe looking at a Tier 5, but doing it the right way. I think we've really got to talk and see exactly what that looks like and bring everybody to a table to come up with that. So, yeah.
Clay, mobile sports betting. The second year in a row, we attempted to get that through the Senate, and it failed, but it passed the House. How do you stand on that?
I voted for mobile sports betting, and I think we need it. It's obviously going on in the state right now, so we're losing those tax dollars to the illegal gambling sites.
People are still betting,
absolutely,
doing mobile sports betting. It's just that we're not getting the revenue from it.
That's correct.
What do you think, Jonathan? There's this delta that's becoming a chasm between the Senate and the House on so many issues, whether it's tax reform or mobile sports betting or education choice is another polarizing issue. No matter where you stand on that, there's a pretty good gap between where the House and the Senate stands on these matters.
And I'll say this. I really try to look at the intent of each piece of legislation that comes about, and I think everybody has their own what they want to do, what they want to push. I don't think anybody necessarily is saying that, they're just trying to do things to harm or hurt Mississippi, but it is a process. Whenever you have 120 right now members of the House and you got your members of the Senate, getting everybody on the same page, that's why we go down there every day.
Yeah.
So But there again, I think some things should be a little more common sense, and it shouldn't be this difficult on some issues.
Yeah.
To get some consistency.
Certificate of need legislation as well, at least some partial repeal that seems to always make its way through the House and then doesn't go anywhere in the Senate, Clay.
Yeah, well, we had several hearings on that this summer as well. So we did the research. We found what areas of certificate of need they hurt the state. They're hurting the healthcare outcomes. So I'm glad we're looking at that. But, also through this process on each issue you just raised, we're seeing sides come together. And I think that's how the process should work. At one point the Senate was against income tax elimination, and now they're at the table. So, the process has worked for many years. I hope it'll work correctly and best outcomes for Mississippi this year as well.
Maybe we'll get some.
Well, and then at the end of the day, people got to understand, Mississippi's changing. Mississippi has changed from the dynamics of what our business system to where we were 20, 30 years ago. So obviously, we have to change. We have to change some antiquated systems in our government. So
we got to go. Well, we appreciate you guys coming on. I also want to get this in. Both of you guys represent Madison County, and we appreciate you representing.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for what
coming
you do.
right back.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Everyone, it's Middays live from the downtown Weston, downtown Jackson, Mississippi. We're here for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature Luncheon, an annual event. We're pleased to welcome now Sam Kelly. He's the vice chair of the Madison County Business League and Foundation, past chair, also the Madison County School Board president, and is on the Government Affairs Committee. Wearing a lot of hats there, Mr. Kelly, but appreciate you coming on.
Sure. Thank you for having me today, Gerard, and thank you for being here.
Let's talk about this event. This is an incredible event.
It really is. It gives us an opportunity to celebrate our relationship with all the legislature and to make sure they have at the forefront of their minds the importance of Madison County to our entire state. And so it's a great opportunity to accomplish those things.
And let's talk, Sam, about the Madison County School District, the Madison County schools, fantastic schools we're blessed with there in Madison County.
We really are. We're very proud of the history of our schools and very proud of the accomplishments we have. With the exception of one school, every one of our schools are A-rated, which is a phenomenal accomplishment, and that includes all the schools up in the northern part of the county, which sometimes don't get as much notoriety as the others. So we're very proud of those accomplishments and are proud of our relationship with the entire county and understand the importance, I think, of the schools to our overall accomplishments within the county.
Something you guys have to deal with on the school board, of course, is the financial aspect of running the school district. We completely overhauled the state-level formula for funding schools. How did that affect the Madison County School District?
It did have an effect on us. What a lot of people don't realize is Madison County School District is the second largest employer in the county, and we have a over $150 million annual budget. So it did have some impact on us. We were able to adjust to that, and fortunately, under the legislation, we had 3 years that basically give us a safe harbor and make sure we're funded at the same level. Now, after next year, we'll have to make a few adjustments, but hopefully by then, other things that are going on in the county will make up for any shortage we have.
Yeah, so hopefully there's no property tax increases in our future there in the county. And it doesn't seem like we need it with all the capital investment in new property coming on the books.
We really don't. We haven't changed our request for millage in, I know, at least 15 years. We've maintained a stable amount. The County Board of Supervisors has been very good to us on that front. And we have, though, been able to enjoy some additional funding as a result of the growth that's occurring in the county. And that's been very beneficial to us, and quite frankly, how we've been able to do projects without having to ask for a bond issue over the course of the last 10 years.
Yeah, and with the massive investment by Amazon and the AWS hyperscale data centers, a good bit of that will be apportioned to the school district.
It will be. We don't know exactly what our amount is going to be, but we know we will get additional funding, and we have some plans already underway to invest heavily in the CTE arena to try to utilize those funds in that area, because we think that's a real need and a lot of growth in our county that's focused on that, and so hopefully we're going to be able to use those funds for that purpose.
how does the Madison County Business League and Foundation work to promote and ensure high-quality education, work with the education community?
Yeah, the Business League has several programs that benefit our school district. We have one that's the Youth Legislative Program, where we have a representative of every school in the county that gets to participate in learning about the economic environment within the county and also the governmental process, and we give each one of those a $500 scholarship every year, so that's a great partnership that I think benefits the county. In addition to that, we have a foundation, the Madison County Community Trust, which also uses a lot of its funds to benefit programs. Those are primarily in the northern half of the county, where they have certain programs that they join with our younger folks to put those on with the students, and there's a tremendous benefit to them in learning things about the economy as well as the governmental process within the county.
What are some of the bigger issues, Sam, you deal with at the school board level that are just facing really not only education and the Madison County community, but across the state and the nation?
Yeah, teacher shortage is a real deal. We're fortunate that we're able to attract a lot of high-quality teachers, but it gets harder and harder each and every year, so we can see that as being a real issue over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. In addition to that, of course, we always are worried about our funding and making sure that we have adequate funds to be able to do those things that we have been doing that have led to the success that we've had. So we'll continue to watch funding very closely. We feel very good about where we are in our building program and our facilities, so we think things are in good shape from that standpoint. But I would say the teacher shortage and being able to focus on, from an educational standpoint, two things. One would be the CTE component in making sure we have the programs that we need for the future there. And the other thing is we have a growing population that of where English is a second language. And so that population is requiring more and more attention for us, and we're developing some programs around that.
And still not totally clear how the federal government could change the way it deals with education down at the state and district level as well.
That's right. I mean, we're watching that. The truth of the matter is we certainly get some funds from the federal government that benefit our programs, but the overwhelming majority of our funding comes from the state and from the county.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam Kelly, he's been our guest. He is the president of the Madison County School Board at this point, also serves as the vice chair of the Madison County Business League and Foundation. We are at the top of the hour. That means it's Fox News, SuperTalk News coming right back. It's Richard Cross, host of Mornings with Richard Cross after that.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. It's now live. The Element Well studio relocated today down to the downtown Jackson, Mississippi, Weston. We're here for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature. And right now you get a twofer. You get two hosts. We welcome the host of Mornings with Richard Cross. Richard Cross himself. Good to see you there, Mr. Host.
You as well. What? This is quite a big deal, huh?
Yes.
Ton of people here.
Yeah, it's a big event. I have been involved on this board now for 7 years, I think, and I've watched this event grow dramatically. The board has increased in size. I should say the membership has increased in size dramatically. And I think that's because businesses in Madison County believe they get significant value out of being members. There's no other reason than that. Also serve, of course, on the Madison County Economic Development Authority. We have been blessed with a number of fantastic big-time projects. Top of that list, of course, Amazon Web Services, completely changing the landscape there, physically and financially, and in other ways as well in Madison County. a team effort, Richard, by all the people involved in the Madison County Business League and Foundation, the Madison County Economic Development Authority, the legislature, the government, the Mississippi Development Authority, Entergy. You had Haley Forsackerly on yesterday talking about the storm. So it's been incredible to witness this. I think this will be transformational to our state. I really do. I've said that I think this will do more good for our state than any bill we could pass down there at the Capitol.
Well, and I love how it signals that Madison County is open for business, right? And you know, one of the things that Madison County is blessed with, in my view, you live here, not me, is that there is land that is available as you go a little farther north. People think about Madison proper, Madison, Ridgeland, Gluckstadt, that area, and yet you've got a ton of undeveloped and developable land north toward Canton and different parts, and so it feels like there's a lot of opportunity moving forward for Madison County as well. There
is, and the decision was made before I joined the board in 2018, but when the supervisors authorized Madison County Economic Development Authority to purchase what is the mega site, which is the home of Amazon Web Services, the northern campus for their hyperscale data centers, and then, of course, the Amazon Fulfillment Center. There's a couple of other big businesses out there as well. It looked speculative and risky, of course, sure, but it turned out to be just totally fantastic at the end of the day, and we're all benefiting from that. You and I on our respective shows have been covering quite extensively this tax reform legislation.
I thought you wanted to talk about the announcement of the Champions Dinner at the Masters and what Scotty Scheffler is serving for everybody.
That's always fun, is it not?
It is.
Champions Dinner?
I'd love an invitation, but I'm not a champion.
I don't think we rate for the. Have you been to the Masters?
I have.
Yeah, I have too.
A couple of times.
I've been once. 97. When Tiger won his first.
How about that?
Happened to see that. I will always cherish that.
I got to go in 2005, went again in 2012, and I'm going to go this year on Wednesday.
Okay.
So
that's a lot of fun. The par 3 tournament is always cool.
That's on Wednesday. Yeah.
So I saw Jack
excited
Nicklaus
about that.
In 97, made a hole in one in the par 3 tournament.
How good is that?
That's unbelievable. You can't describe it to anybody. We golf nuts, of course. How do you describe Augusta National and the Masters? You can't do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely pristine. And from time to time, you'll hear somebody say, there are no weeds anywhere. And when we say there are no weeds anywhere, I'm talking about in the woods.
That's
like
right.
in the wooded area among the pine trees where the pine, like, you can't find a weed anywhere. What they do, I mean, there's some things about that place that are just beyond the ability to comprehend. The sub-air system that is there for the entire course. I mean, they can dry it out in a moment's notice. What they do to make sure that the azaleas are in bloom at the right time.
Ice or heaters.
You know, there's this debate as to whether or not they pipe in bird music to go along with the broadcast. I don't know. The most fascinating thing, so in the merchandise tent now, and they've redone that, they take a project on during the off-season when they're closed, and you come back and it's like nothing changed except, oh, that's new. That's completely different. So with the merchandise tent, all of the shelves, it's not tent, it's a building now.
Yeah.
All of the shelves are like spring-loaded, and when they sell all the shirts or it's going low, it drops down to a sub-level. They reload the shelves, and the shelves come back up to the top level, and it's like, you know, nothing changed. It really is incredible.
And the pimento cheese sandwiches, of course,
and not very expensive.
No. What are they? They were $1 when I was there.
Yeah, it's gone up a little. It's like $2.25. I mean, even inflation is at the Masters, but you can't eat that cheap for anywhere else.
$2.25.
That's right. Not bad at all.
It is incredible. Okay.
The peach ice cream sandwich, though, is the best thing they have at the concession stand.
It's awesome.
I had a buddy one time that bought a case, went to his car, put them in a cooler, and then came back in to watch the tournament and then brought ice cream sandwiches home to Mississippi. That's thinking smart right there.
You absolutely cannot describe it. Bobby Jones, what would he say today, you wonder, seeing how his tournament...
You know, if you read about the early history of the Masters, that's a tournament that was hanging on by a thread. Yeah. And they were in serious economic issues. They went to the Augusta business community and reached out to them, and they were to the point where they weren't going to be able to ask for any more money. Like, everybody was tapped out. And then you have, what was it, Gene Sarazen that hit the shot, heard around the world. That kind of changed the fortunes. He makes the double eagle. And to stand in that spot where he hit that shot and think about the club that he was swinging when he did it. We're talking, persimmon head, hickory shaft, and it's like, come on.
Bellata ball, feathery ball.
Yeah, exactly. That was pre-Bellata even.
That's pre-Bellata. That's right.
Yeah. For those that love golf, it is a special place, and if the opportunity ever presents itself, drop whatever you're doing and run, don't walk.
The Mecca, the cathedral. What was so striking to me the first time, well, the only time I went, but with the first day I went, is you're on the outside in Augusta, and this thing is encased, if you will, by fairly high, at the time, fences that had growth on vegetation. And you can't see in.
You pull onto Washington Avenue and you're like, oh, it's here.
Yeah, and then you walk in like, whoa, all right? Yeah. I mean, you come like off the sidewalk through the gates there, and you just can't anticipate it and explain it, the reaction. And it was practice day when I got there the first day, of course. And you walk in, and you didn't have cameras back then, but you had little portable cameras. Didn't have smartphones, I should say.
Yeah.
But I walk in, and on the 10th, there's an entrance on the 10th hole. Mm-hmm. And there's Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Fuzzy Zeller. And I'm scrambling with my camera to try to get pictures of that. You absolutely cannot describe it. What a cool event.
I derailed your tax conversation.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry about that.
But one more thing I want to point out about that, and we'll get back to taxes. This is an event that's not operated by the PGA Tour.
That's right.
It's not a PGA Tour event. Non-golfers may not be aware of that.
Yeah.
It's the Masters. It's Augusta Nationals. Hey, come play golf in this tournament.
And they operate the event the way they want to operate the event. And they dictate the terms. They dictate who's there, the waiting list for tickets, the lottery every year. It really is an incredible operation.
It no doubt is. All right, so you and I have been talking to all these various legislators and analyzing this tax legislation. We've already told the audience what happened yesterday. The House essentially put the Senate's bill in their bill and said, okay, we passed it, and the Senate put their bill in the House's bill and vice versa across. What happens now? You think we're going to get to conference or not?
Yes, I think it will get to conference. But what comes out of conference, I think, is what matters. I know that they worked really, really hard behind the scenes in the Senate yesterday to get that across the finish line.
Got it.
They did 32-16. You got to go 3/5,
yep.
and kind of hit that number on the head. They were where they needed to be, but there were 4 Democrats that voted for that, and I think that probably upset some of the Democrat leadership a little bit because they wanted to kill the bill ultimately and not have that go forward. There were a couple of senators, Hob Bryan and David Blunt, that spoke passionately against the bill.
They did.
On the Senate floor yesterday. By the way, that was the first time I had done that. Sat in the gallery and watched the debate, and it is an intriguing procedural thing to watch.
I agree.
I would encourage, if you ever have the opportunity to do that, and it's open to the public, that you should do that at some point, just to see the way government works. But it was significant, and Speaker of the House Jason White this morning, there was a visible relief on his face when he sat down and visited, because he said he wanted to thank his colleagues in the Senate for getting it across the finish line. I know there have been a lot of barbs back and forth between the two halls within the Capitol, but the conversation doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And had that bill not passed on the Senate floor yesterday, it would have stopped.
We got a break right here. You hear the music. You want to hang around? We got an empty segment. You want to keep talking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the important people here, you're stuck with me, but yeah, I'll hang around for a little while longer.
Awesome. Richard Cross, host of Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, is our guest. We're stepping aside. We're at the Madison County Business League and Foundations League and Legislature Luncheon.
Patriot. Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio at the Jackson Westin today for the Madison County Business League and Foundation, the League and Legislature. You poked your head in that room, didn't you, Richard?
I did.
I think it's
who's who.
Man, it's something, isn't it?
Said between 400 and 500, I think was the last number that I heard. Really an incredible turnout, and I guess nothing's being done at the Capitol right now.
Because so they're all here.
They're all here.
Which is good.
I don't know if they'll just gavel in when lunch finishes and split the room in half. Or right side of the hall, left side of the hall. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work.
We've got the Honorable Jason White, Speaker of the House, is the keynote speaker today, and you and I just chatted with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. You were talking about the Speaker seemed to be pleased based on his comments that the Senate's passing the tax reform legislation. Took the House bill, inserted the Senate's version in it. I think, and get your take on this, the primary goal, of course, of the House and the governor is to eliminate the income tax. The Senate amended their original legislation to achieve that, though you do have to pass through some financial gates, if you will, to carve that out and reduce it down to zero. But still, though, that brings them closer.
Yeah. And it allows the conversation to continue.
Yeah.
And, Jason White said this morning when he was on with me, he said, it feels like the Senate finally planted a flag. And he said, we planted a flag a little while back, and that was we are willing to eliminate the income tax. Now, very different way of getting there. Timeline changes a little bit. I honestly think that the language surrounding the triggers is important, and I guess the math formula that goes around that as well. But I do think there's some wisdom in saying that, okay, we're going to get it quickly to 3%, which is very much in line with surrounding states, not counting Texas, Florida, Tennessee that have no state income tax. But when you look at Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, very much in line with where they are. So you get it there quickly. And then the wisdom piece of it is if Mississippi's doing well, we're just going to keep this thing rolling. And if we have, God hope this isn't true, but a hurricane on the coast that costs us billions of dollars as a state, if there is economic calamity that hits from a nationwide standpoint, we're not locked into doing something that handcuffs us and pushes us to a place financially as a state we don't want to be. I do think there's wisdom in that.
The Senate's contention has always been that if you just set that on an automatic course, that is a risk, and that the legislature wouldn't react as necessary in a responsible manner. In my discussions with Chairman Lamar and Speaker of the House Jason White, when I posed that question, hey, what would you do if we've got another scheduled decrease essentially in revenue, but some extraordinary event occurs, or just an economic downturn that just causes revenues to decline even further, because now we're relying on sales tax revenues, and when you don't have an income tax, and if folks aren't consuming as much, that's a problem. And he always said that he has faith in the legislature, that they would respond and maybe put a pause on the tax cuts or figure something out. And he also felt very strongly that this would force the legislature to get serious about cutting spending because they got less revenue to deal with.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I think there are a couple of things in there. I don't think there's been a whole lot of talk in this process about cutting revenue. And you've got some staunch conservatives that say, why are we not talking about cutting revenue?
Spending.
Cutting spending.
Right.
Sorry, not cutting revenue.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have to cut
No,
revenue.
I got you.
That there has not been enough conversation about cutting spending.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reasonable conversation.
Sure.
And so we'll see where that goes. To me, the thing that stands out most in this is if it goes to conference, what's going to happen with the sales tax piece of it? Because the House bill still has sales tax going from 7% to 8%. And I don't know that there's an appetite for that in the Senate.
I'm told there's not.
Zero. I have been told the exact same thing and they're not saying publicly that's a non-starter, don't bring us that. They're just saying if that is the sticking point, we can't get it across the finish line. And if the ultimate goal is to eliminate the state income tax, regardless of the time period to do that, and that is the sticking point, well, are you going to do what you have to do to reach that ultimate goal, or are you going to say, sorry, we couldn't get it done, and then start playing the blame game on why it didn't get done?
And we should be clear, because I know you get the same questions. that's not just the position of the lieutenant governor, who no doubt wields a lot of power over his members in his chamber.
Absolutely.
That's a widespread opinion and position within the rank and file of Republican senators in particular.
Yesterday was a significant day because for the first time, and I guess it was Monday when they had the press release that said we're doing this, but I thought it was kind of a crossing of the Rubicon for the Senate to say, okay, we are willing to codify taking the state income tax to zero. Now, there are triggers. There are things that have to happen to get there, but that was a significant step forward for them. Now, what step forward is the House going to take? Or are they going to say, we've already taken enough steps to get to this point, now you got to meet us? Well, I mean, that's kind of the back and forth and the horse trading that goes along with this. I thought there was something that happened yesterday in the Senate that was very, very important. And I know you've talked a lot about the retirement system. Mm-hmm. Daniel Sparks has kind of taken the lead on the PERS and the Tier 5 portion of that part of it. And he went to great lengths and even asked a question of one of the members, answered a question from one of the members, what about my existing retirement? And went to great lengths to say, if you are currently in PERS, nothing changes.
No effect.
And I think they cannot say that enough. They can't shout it from the rooftops enough because people, right, wrong, and indifferent, are scared to death when you start talking about PERS.
Just talking about it scares
you talk about it and like, wait, what they say about PERS?
Yeah.
And what the Senate and Daniel Sparks in particular wanted you to hear yesterday is if you are a current PERS participant or if you are hired into the PERS system before March 1st of 2026,
that's right,
then you are part of the current system. We got a question this morning on the C Spire text line. I thought it was a good one. It was said, hey, I've got 6.5 years in the state retirement system in PERS, but I'm not currently working for the state. If I were to come back to the state, would I be grandfathered in? And the answer to that also was yes.
Yep.
If you have ever been part or currently part of PERS, nothing changes for you going forward.
That's exactly right. And look, it's a reasonable, understandable, natural question.
It is.
Anytime you hear something. And Senator Hobson was on earlier, and he said that yesterday he received a number of calls from constituents who no doubt are PERS members with the same question that you just articulated that. And that's completely understandable. And we should be clear, this does not solve the PERS problem, the unfunded liability problem. It stops the bleeding.
Right.
Now, and keep this in mind, until you start hiring people into that program, you haven't changed anything. So this is really attrition of active, existing public sector employees being replaced with new ones that are going to be coming into a new program. The question is, are we going to be able to recruit people?
Sure. And maybe you do that with salaries. Maybe you enhance salaries.
I think that's right.
And that's the recruiting tool that you use, whatever that number is to be competitive.
So we may take pressure off of PERS, but it doesn't really help the taxpayers. We're still having to
possibly.
Because the contribution rate is for the employer, the taxpayer funded portion, the employers, we're really talking about taxpayers, that stays the same, as you know. The difference is the employee contributes 4% of their total 9%, which is the current employee rate. 4% goes to PERS, 5% goes to this new defined contribution plan. But the full 19.9, that's where we're headed, of the employer goes to the PERS fund. There's no match to the employee's defined contribution plan, the way a typical employer would match something to some extent,
sure,
their employees. And
that's a dramatic change because right now that match is off the chart.
Oh, it's crazy. It's for IHLs, I believe it's 15% to their 9%.
Right.
State puts in 15%, the employee puts in 9%.
And that's not even bringing into the conversation the optional retirement program, the ORP piece of it.
No, that is.
Okay, you're talking about ORP,
that's what
not
I'm talking
PERS.
about. And that's a problem now in that, no employer in the private sector is going to more than double the contribution, right, that the employee is putting in. Usually it's half, honestly, is kind of a typical benchmark. But we're almost double that. And so that's part of what Sparks' legislation does, is it reduces that down to an equal 9%, and the other 6% goes to the PERS fund. So we continue to contribute the same.
The only thing that strikes me as a little disingenuous is the notion that the $100 million toward PERS that the House bill talks about, the idea that, that's nothing. It's certainly not enough to fix the problem, but to say that $100 million is nothing while also championing the $110 million that they put into PERS last year.
And this year, too,
that's a little disingenuous to me. It certainly doesn't fix the problem, but it's also not nothing.
Well, if you noticed the qualifier to that is it's $100 million until such time as the funding level reaches 80%.
So in 3087, we get to that 80% number based on a $100 million a year contribution.
$100 million is going to be built into the program for a long time going to PERS. Richard Cross, host of Mornings with Richard Cross, has been our guest. Appreciate you coming on, Richard. Great job you're doing as well, man.
Appreciate you.
We're coming right back. Stay with us.
From the K, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's Middays. We're live at the downtown West End in Jackson, Mississippi for the Madison County Business League and Foundation's annual League and Legislature. So, big time luncheon. The room just about 20 feet from my position here is full of a bunch of people, including many members of our legislature who have made their way from the Capitol a few blocks to the south here to the west, and really nice place, great place to have a big event like this, and again, in striking distance of the Capitol. So, all about taxes, that's the big thing going on down there in the state capitol. This Tier 5 PERS program, the new one introduced by Senator Daniel Sparks, not sure if you caught us in the last segment. It differs from Tier 4 in that its benefits are considerably less that would be paid to new employees. The plan is a hybrid structure where essentially half is a defined benefit plan, the PERS program, although with much lower benefits, and also does not include the rather egregious cost of living adjustment. And people may get mad at me for calling it egregious, and that's fine. I describe it that way simply because it's really not a cost of living adjustment. It's just an automatic increase in pay, in benefit pay, computed as at a compounded rate of 3%. So it's really not a cost of living adjustment, in that it's not connected to, tied, based on, contingent upon the change increase specifically in the cost of living. The Social Security, for example, or other state retirement systems, they have cost of living adjustment features as well, but those are actually tied to the Consumer Price Index, to some metrics of the increase of the cost of living. It's not just an automatic increase, which is the way the Mississippi PERS works. It's an automatic increase regardless. Even if the cost of living were to decline, the PERS recipients would still receive, under their contract, a cost of living adjustment upward. So it's not really tied to the cost of living. I think it's perhaps misdescribed and mislabeled. It's really just an automatic increase in annual pay is a way to look at it. But that's the program that Senator Sparks has introduced. Again, it would cut benefit payments to new employees only that enter the system effective next March, so all new public sector employees, should this bill become law, all new public sector employees would enter Tier 5, not the current term of Tier 4, which is a full defined benefit program that also includes the cost of living adjustment feature. This would be totally different, a hybrid, half defined benefit, half defined contribution, like a typical 401k plan. You just put money in it. And by the way this thing is designed, employers can optionally also transfer money to the new employee's defined contribution plan, just like your employer would help with some matching dollars to your standard 401k plan. This plan that has been developed by Senator Sparks, authored by Senator Sparks, it includes no employer contribution to the defined benefit portion component of the plan. So you put your 5% of your pay in that fund, you invest it as you see fit, and when you get ready to retire, whatever the amount of money is in that account, that's what you have available to you for withdrawal. The defined benefit plan, the standard PERS program, is for life, just like all defined benefit programs are, but it's much lower payout than Tier 4 standard current PERS. And that's how this program reduces future expenses while also beefing up the fund, because the employer is still putting the same amount of money in the fund. It's just the employees not getting nearly as much out, is the way it works. And the PERS, my understanding is the PERS board and others who were involved in this, including the actuaries and just doing some little polling of public sector employers, basically say that young folks that they recruit and extend employment to don't seem to be that concerned about those benefits at a much, much later date. Interesting. I was a little surprised by that. A teacher that stopped teaching and withdrew entire account. If I go back to teaching, nothing changes in that case as well, says Mike from Columbus. I'd have to dig into the details on that particular question. I'm not honestly sure, Mike. You may enter the program in the new tier, in Tier 5, instead of returning to the original tier since you withdrew and deactivated. You're not still in the system, but I don't know that for sure. That's a question that I'd have to check on by reading the legislation with respect to that particular scenario. Hey, I was texting in about the PERS information you're speaking about. That change is normal. St. Dominic Hospital back in 2010 actually got rid of their pension and went to a hybrid plan and defined benefit plan. These old-time pensions can't survive, so they stopped it. So, of course, it's less, but that's just the way of the world. Good grief, the private sector's been doing this for a while. That's absolutely true. We appreciate the text. And Rhino and I have pointed that out numerous times on the program. If you go back in history and look at it, but particularly the 90s, Rhino, as I recall, in the early 2000s, the one I remember because it's related to my industry is IBM had a very generous defined benefit program, and they finally put an end to it. AT&T is another one. There are very few remaining in the private sector. There's almost none that are available for new employees. But what they did is they closed those down and forced all new employees into their new defined contribution plan. But in closing them down, they had to make sure it had enough money in it to pay future benefits for everybody that was still in the program, currently in the program. In other words, not new employees that come into the program under this new structure. And they had big one-time charge-offs. I'm talking multi-billion-dollar charge-offs just to put money away as a reserve to ensure they could continue to fund those benefits. The other thing that Sparks' plan does, I think it's still in there, the original legislation certainly incorporated, is that it ends the Supplemental Legislative Retirement Program, also known as SLRP. And that's a special defined pension plan available to legislators only. They also participate in the standard public employees retirement system, same benefits, just like everybody else, same contributions. But in the case of legislators, they have this additional, that's why they call it supplemental legislative retirement program. His bill would not end the program, but end its availability to all new legislators. Anybody that gets elected in the next cycle would not be able to participate and join the current supplemental legislative retirement program. So essentially, once everybody that's currently in that program retires, and honestly, don't mean to sound morbid here, but once they pass away, because they get benefits for life, that program essentially, it closes down totally, completely. I would have liked to seen the legislature take it a step further, and here's what I mean by that. I think they should have just ended the program altogether instead of just continuing it for those that are currently in it. And here's what I mean by that. Everybody's getting benefits, no change. Everybody who has vested, they've got 8 years in, no change. Everybody that is in the legislature that's currently in the program, the supplemental program, but has not yet served 8 years and thus has not yet vested, refund them their money. So that the only ones that still participate are those who have vested and those who are currently receiving benefits. Everybody else, you're in the program, but you hadn't gotten to the 8 years. Here's your money back. You're out. Everybody that is newly elected, obviously you're out. That's what I would have liked to see done. Mathematically and financially, it doesn't really make a lot of difference, but I think the optics would look really good in that the legislature would show we're trying to end this special benefit that we get. We're coming right back with Austin Stewart, chair of the Madison County Executive Leadership Steering Committee, and also Chris Roberts, board of directors with the Madison County Business League and Foundation, also with the Young Professionals. Stay with us.
Anytime she goes away,
Family Turn.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We're live at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Madison County Business League and Foundation League and Legislature remote. We're pleased to welcome now Austin Stewart, chair of the Madison County Executive Leadership Steering Committee, past chair, Madison County Young Professionals, and also the Young Professional of the Year, along with Chris Roberts, board of directors of the Madison County Business League and Foundation, and past steering committee chair of the Mississippi Young Professionals and president, Mississippi Young Bankers Association. Austin and Chris, thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
all right, so
absolutely.
We're going to hear a lot of noise here because they're unloading out of the luncheon. Start with you, Austin. This event, I've been associated with this organization for a number of years. I've watched this event really grow. It's become a big deal.
Absolutely, it's been fun to watch the length of the line grow as people try to get in for lunch. I think that's probably the metric, right, for how successful the event is. But listening to the speaker's comments in there, he's absolutely right. This has been a first-rate event, I think, in the business league and also for the legislature.
Yeah,
and so it's nice to see how many legislators and statewide officials we have turn out for this, and I think it shows the importance to them of what's going on in Madison County.
Chris, it's important, is it not, that the business community communicate its viewpoints, its needs, its plans, its strategy, its vision to our lawmakers, because I think our lawmakers generally want to ensure that they regulate the state to the extent they have and just pass laws that don't interfere with business expansion and growth, but rather are conducive to growing our economy.
That's exactly right, Gerard. And the key word I think you would mention in that statement is communicate. And the one thing that I love about the fact that this organization does it marries the private sector and the legislative body. And what does it do? It gets everybody in the same room. We're all communicating. It's not going to benefit everybody all the time, but the goal is that we have effective communication and that we have effective, robust economic development throughout Madison County that ultimately benefits the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. And I think many of them, Austin, would tell you, well, we don't know what you need unless you tell us. I mean, and so sometimes we recognize things out in the community in general and especially in the business world that they need to be aware of to make sure that they don't do something that steps on the toes or interferes with the progress and the advances being made by businesses.
That's exactly right. And I think that's part of our job as being in the private sector, in the business world, connecting that not only to each other in the business league and communicating amongst each other as to what we're seeing in the markets and in the industries that we're all taking part in, but then also getting a cohesive plan together as to how do we communicate what's important to the business community, to our legislators. And the Business League does a great job about that with organizing priorities each year for each session and making sure that those are adequately communicated to our political leaders.
And they act on it.
That's right. They can implement the policies that hopefully end up affecting all of us at the end of the day.
Chris, tell us about the Young Professionals Program. It's a pretty neat deal with respect to the League and Foundation's work.
Absolutely. And it is, as I tell folks, it's an arm of the Business League, and the goal is development of what you might call up-and-coming talent. And so it maybe a succession plan on some level. And so I had the fortune of being involved in the inaugural class of that approximately 2017, and we've seen that grow specifically year to year. It is structured just as the Business League organization, where we have an executive team, we have a steering committee, and our goal a lot of times is just to promote the same thing again that the Business League is doing, but a key piece of it is truly networking, because as we look at it as a long run, the runway is that we will all develop as leaders over time and engage and have a person that you can call on in any market in any industry.
Austin, we're blessed with a lot of young talent in Madison County as well.
That we are, and that's part of what the Executive Leadership Program is striving to do as well. We like to, what we say our goal is we identify the talent that is in our organizations that has executive potential. We want to bring those young folks together, or of all ages together, and then have programming that encourages not only to the development of their leadership skills, but that networking piece as well. Because, again, it's all important that we're communicating together on this.
No doubt. And we want them, Chris, to be thinking about the future of Madison County and incorporating that into their meetings, their work, their plans, and their communication.
Absolutely. And I think that's key to, again, coming to functions such as this, the League and Legislature, being involved in political advocacy, knowing what's going on during the session, knowing what the key topics are throughout the year. Madison County does a great job of kind of pinpointing 6 to 8, specific topics that are going to be specific to Madison County and to that session. And so that engagement is something that, you're never too young to start and never too young to understand that process.
They're pretty good about staying within their scope, I would say that. You overload it with too much, you get inaction. They just kind of close the book on you.
That's right. Hit the high points. That's always the key.
Austin, Chris, appreciate you guys coming on. Great work, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yep. Thanks for having us.
Folks, that's a wrap here today from the Westin in downtown Jackson. We've enjoyed being here for the Madison County Business League and Foundation Annual League and Legislature. Tomorrow we're going to be at 7 Days for the Troops up in Tupelo. I'll be on with you then. Until then, folks, stay safe and God bless everyone.
Have you been seriously injured? Mama Justice is here for you. Our medical team partners with top-notch doctors, surgeons, therapists, and urologists, ensuring a comprehensive recovery journey. If you've been injured, call Mama Justice today. We're here for you.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.